Guys, so change of plans today. It's backwards to what I said was going to happen. We went and tried my stuff out to the east. The high spots were good. We saw 13.3, 13.5 moisture. Dry is 14.5. So we weren't worried about that, but we're seeing a lot of immature kernels out there, and it was, and that was even on the high ground. As soon as you got a little low, and that field is like 70% low areas, you're seeing a lot of immature kernels. So we said, you know what? Let's leave it for a few days. Let's go check some other crops. We went down and checked our canola, or my canola. It's not ready. It's not far, but it's not ready. So we moved up to what we call the airport. We got these 4 bins. They're about 11,000 bushel apiece. So we're out in Dad's wheat, and this is the last wheat that was seeded. This field's a lot flatter than mine is. So it seems to have advanced a little more evenly, and there's probably less that was seeded in the absolute low spot. So right now we're getting rid of the grain we got off of mine, and I'm gonna test the next load we got there. It's been a really weird morning. Feels like it's gonna rain. Might rain, don't know. So when we're here, I like to have the auger tucked as hard to the side as I can. It's okay if we have grain trucks, but if we're doing it with the semi, it's really difficult here to unload with the semi. We would probably need another 20 feet extension on this pad to get a good angle. Obviously you can't do it that way because you'd be backing into the bin. So we get just out of the way. This is actually our private road, but we sold a piece of land to these guys, so they're allowed to use it. This is another piece of land that is a prime candidate for some drainage. It's really good land. It's just that it's really flat, and in the spring when things start flowing, it wants to cut across kind of over where that truck is right there, come across. There's a dugout that was dug here, and that actually caused us to lose probably an acre's worth of land because it always floods out. There should be, and I think there is, a culvert right here, but I suspect it's partially collapsed or plugged up because it doesn't flow through like it should, because it goes there and then it buggers off that way. This will be an interesting one. I'm planning potentially next year sometime, whether that's spring or fall, depending on when I get my ducks in a row and what finances look like. But I'm planning on getting a drone survey for all the land in the next year. I think we can get a lot of these potholes to drain out and make life a lot easier for us. You can see, already got one at 3/4 full. Brody's working his way around to him. We are, as you can see, we are right beside town. That's my brother's shop. That's the bin. So I got a real short haul, which is nice. Gives me time to ramble to you guys, talk about what's going on. This is Brandon wheat. Normally we try and keep some, but I think this year we're starting to see a lot of crossbred genetics in it. I want to say this is year 6 or 7 on this seed. Typically I know I've never had to do it, but I don't like the idea of going much more than 5 years. So where you can see the difference, oh, I don't even have to go very far. This is about what it should look like. I'll back out. It's semi-dwarf, so it's not terribly tall. It's maybe 2.5 to 3 feet tall. What you start seeing though is these guys. That could be some older variety, and you start seeing some taller, spindlier ones too. That could also be a different variety. But if you look at the Brandon, which is awned, or you don't call it bearded, those are awns, A-W-N-E-D, versus a non-awned or awnless, they're slightly different. The big thing is they, ooh, that's nice and dry. The wheats are slightly different. I don't know why that guy's so tall, whether it's a different variety or not. But the ones that don't have awns, they could be an old, I'm trying to remember what Dad had before, whether it was Vesper or something else. I'm drawing a blank on it. He had Vesper and something. Oh, it's gonna bug me. Anyways, sorry about the little kochia there. Or there. What you want is these awns. We've had great success with the awned wheat, primarily because when it comes up, when it's flowering, it opens up. I'll try and get a closer view for you. It opens up a bit, but those awns protect a lot of the areas from the midge getting in, so that they can get down and they stick their butt in there and lay eggs, or vice versa. It's tougher, but the grasshoppers still can get in to eat, and they'll eat just the tops of the kernels of wheat. So as more and more generations of the same wheat are used, you will get weaker strains. I shouldn't say weaker. You actually probably get stronger strains, but you also have the potential for freak genes to come out, and weak genes as well. So the more of these that are there, the more likely that you're going to see midge damage in your sample. Despite it might produce really well, it's not protected. So that's another problem we have coming up this year. I shouldn't say a problem, it's just something we got to address. And you can definitely see the height difference. This is about what the wheat used to be when I was young. And, you know, this outside round is usually fairly light, but usually you could see just a really nice, even head height when this stuff is certified or a couple years off certified. You're seeing a lot of ones poking up above the canopy. But one problem that comes up as we look into wheat, and we don't know if we're gonna keep the same variety. Brandon's been very good to us. I tried Elida the other year. I did not like its performance. It was supposed to perform as good or very comparable to Brandon, but it was supposed to be better at building protein than Brandon. And that is a weakness of the Brandon wheat. We found that adding ESN has really helped bump our protein. A lot of these other varieties that are on the market right now are what are called varietal blends. And a varietal blend will actually kind of look like that, where it's got pretty much sacrificial plants built into it. So it has weaker or longer season wheat in there that might be susceptible to the midge or more preferred by the midge, so that it doesn't hurt the bulk of the crop. So that what the midge are feasting on will not result in a lot of damage, except to the weaker strains. Now, the problem with varietal blends is you can typically recrop them 2 to 3 times, and then you end up in a bit of a pickle where your weaker strains, like your sacrificial strains, have been bred out or killed off, and they are no longer a varietal blend. So the midge no longer have a preference for the weaker plants, they just eat everything. Or you start to have too much of one blend, or too much of the ratios in the blend, and you end up with a very high midge population or stuff like that. So I'm not the biggest fan in the world of varietal blends. It's just, I kind of like the purebred. Yeah, well, she started raining on us a bit. Just enough. You see, I'm getting rid of that. Brody will probably unload those guys. Shut things down. We're see what the weather says here. We had a really good run of good harvest weather. It could have been warmer. Wow. It was really warm to start with, and of course we were doing canola then, and now I'm still stressed about that. But what do they got going on here? What? Jesus. Up to 5 mil. It's a far cry from the 1 to 3 mil they were forecasting like an hour ago. This happened. 14 days, what do we got? Yeah, pretty good after today, but then again, like 2 days ago, they were saying we were going to get 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch of rain on the weekend, so I don't know. I don't put a lot of faith in these guys anymore. So, anyways, today was not meant to be. I hope that's not expensive, whatever's going on there. Well, it's too wet to harvest today, so I'm going to continue rolling my canola, and it's a lot more involved than I make it sound, but probably would have seen before that we had warm canola in the bin. It's actually bordering on hot, and you've only got a couple of weeks before it'll start cooking itself at the temperatures we were seeing. So we've got this bin nice and cool. It's full of my canola, and we'll scroll through this guy. I'll show you what we're, if I can find the gem. So you'll see this one's almost empty, but there's still probably 500 bushel in the bottom, and it's 35 degrees almost. This guy's cooler at the top, but it's still 30 at the bottom, 33, or 30 at the middle, 33 at the bottom. So I'm going to take all this bin, going to take it back down south. I'm going to put it in a couple of 3300s that are off to the side, and then I'm going to pull the bottom off of that and start pulling the rest out of the second bin, and we'll see where we get to today. So I've got 3 loads in here that I have to take first before I can start hauling back here. All right, so just to recap, both of these bins are a bit warm, but they were harvested from about 4.5 miles that way. It was really hot those days. Hot grain bad. That's all you gotta know. Heated canola will continue to heat. The higher the heat, the faster it will heat. So, you know, once you're around the 20 degree mark, you're pretty okay. 20 degrees and under, pretty stable. It's a good idea to turn them every once in a while if you are doing extended storage. So like these bins, I'm this one and that one, we'll probably turn them in about 6 weeks. And then after that, if we haven't sold them, we'll probably turn it again in, I don't know, 2 to 3 months. Like, it gets a little longer, especially if you can turn it in the winter. Just, you keep it cool, you keep it blended, you keep hot spots out, because the hot spots will make a bigger hot spot. But if you can break it up, slow down the process, you're fine. All right, so let's just kind of summarize what we got going on here. Sounds like it's bogging down just a hair. The tractor does, but doesn't really sound like the auger's slowing down, so maybe it's just where I was standing. Surely we couldn't be empty yet, or even close to it. Anyways, you'll hear it, it'll chatter like a son of a bitch. Grain was harvested about 4 miles that way on a hot day. We put it into the bin. We knew it was going to be warm. We knew we were going to have to deal with it. Plugged the probe in, and it was as warm as we expected. Low to mid 30s, which is bad. If we were to leave this, I guess this bin, but this bin, both of them were, this one was hotter. But if we were to leave that 35 degrees canola in there for probably 2 to 3 weeks untouched, like, don't get me wrong, it's good and dry, but it's just that the heat would start rising from the bottom and would concentrate up top, because you can't get a lot of heat discharge out of these bins without the assistance of aeration. Those two have the ability to be aerated, but they have not been yet, because they don't have aeration fans. Different project, different year. We'll deal with that next year. Or, yeah, I'll talk about that later. So, we took the hottest bin, which is this one, loaded it into the semi, took it up north. That guy moved. So we took it up. We had some nice cool days that were between like 12 and 20. Nice temperature to have canola. Even cooler's a little bit better. You don't want it too cold though, especially this time of year, because it will attract moisture and it'll clump up, and then it might heat as well. Oop, wrong way. Come on, you.